We're about 3 weeks in, and this has been, first of all, one of the most bizarre NFL seasons that I've seen in quite some time. You got the Kansas City Chiefs that are at the bottom of the AFC West. The Carolina Panthers are one of the only 5 undefeated teams in the NFL. They're at the top. They lead the NFC South. We're seeing historical field goals by Justin Tucker. It's been just a bizarre start to the year. And obviously, so far, if you would have told me that that the only remaining 5 teams in the NFL that are undefeated are the Raiders, the Broncos, the Panthers, the Rams, and the Cardinals, I probably wouldn't have believed you. And yet, there are also 3 winless teams, rather. And that group includes the Jets, the Jaguars, the Giants, the Colts, and the Lions. But to me, only one of these teams is the most disappointing to be 0-3. And without question, it's the New York Football Giants. This is the most disappointing 0-3 team right now because it's inexcusable. It's inexplainable. So let me provide some context. If you look first at the New York Jets, if we honestly evaluate the New York Jets, what our expectations were, this was a team that was expected going into this year to win 6 games. They were projected to win 6 games. Well, they've got a rookie quarterback in Zach Wilson. They got a first-year defensive-minded head coach in Robert Saleh. This was a team that had the worst offense in the NFL last year. And obviously right now they're bottom 3 offense this year. They lost their starting left tackle for at least 4 to 6 weeks in Mekhi Becton. And they don't have many playmakers on the outside. Jamison Crowder's only played 1 game. Their defense has been ravaged by injuries. Their starting safety, LaMarcus Joyner, has only played in 1 game. They lost their big offseason acquisition, Jared Davis, the linebacker, for the year. Carl Lawson, their starting defensive end, lost to the season to ruptured Achilles to start the year. They've got multiple offensive tackles that are on IR. And so they have a porous offensive line. They've got no run game. Their starting running back, Tevin Coleman, is out right now indefinitely. So it's not surprising to me that the Jets have struggled so much. This is a team that finished 2-14 last year, 4th in the AFC East last year. So it's not surprising that they're following that up with a similar type of start, 0-3. That makes complete sense to me. Now we look at the Jaguars. Well, Trevor Lawrence and Urban Meyer are the only 2 real bright spots on this team. Yes, they've got 1 good linebacker in Miles Jack, UCLA guy. They've got Shaq Barrett as a good cornerback. And they've got 2 decent wide receivers in DJ Chark and Chenault. But otherwise, they're bereft of talent. And again, this is another team that came in expected and projected to win only 6.5 games. So is it really surprising that they are 0-3 right now? I would say no. They've had to face not the best competition, but at the same time, they're just bereft of talent. So it's not a surprise that they're 0-3 so far. Now you look at the Detroit Lions, to be honest, this might be the biggest misconception and misunderstood team in the NFL right now. This is one of the better 0-3 teams that we've seen in quite some time. I have to give credit to Dan Campbell. The guy can't do a media conference to save his life, but when it comes to inspiring and eliciting the best out of your guys, his players play physical, they play tough, they play extremely hard, and I give him a lot of credit. He's been coaching them up, and they've been competitive in at least 2 of the 3 games. They've had one of the hardest starts to an NFL schedule. They nearly pulled off one of the best comebacks in NFL history against the San Francisco 49ers. They trailed 41-17 with 2.5 minutes left, and they had the ball down 8 with an opportunity to tie. They had to travel to Green Bay on the road. Very difficult game, to a place to go, especially the week after the Packers absolutely got annihilated by the Saints. And then they return home to face the Baltimore Ravens. And if it wasn't for an historic 66-yard Justin Tucker field goal, the Lions would be at least 1-2. And they lost their starting cornerback, Jeff Okudah, to a ruptured Achilles. But I like what I've been seeing from them. They've been extremely encouraging so far through the first 3 weeks. I thought Jared Goff has actually been playing pretty well. DeAndre Swift is playing well. Penei Sewell, the recent draft pick out of Oregon. I like some of the pieces that they have. I truly do. TJ Hawkinson. I really like some of these pieces. Quintez Cephas, a Wisconsin guy, a wide receiver. So I actually have been really encouraged by their 0-3 start, and I think it's a little misleading what their record represents. And then finally, the last other team before the New York Giants is the Indianapolis Colts, and I am on record saying I would not be surprised at all if the Indianapolis Colts start the season 0-5. I truly felt that way because they have had the most difficult opening slate to start the season. You face the Seattle Seahawks at home, a playoff team from last year. You face the LA Rams with Matt Stafford at home, a playoff team from last year. You travel to Tennessee, a divisional rival and a playoff team from last year. Now you go to Miami, which might be, at first I thought that was going to be a more difficult matchup. Now that might be their best chance of getting on the board and winning, given that it's Jacoby Brissett as opposed to Tua. And they don't have so many weapons right now. They're not the healthiest team. And then after that, they travel, let's see, where do they travel to? At the Ravens. So, again, another playoff team from last year. So this was a really difficult schedule. And though I'm disappointed they're 0-3, I'm not the most disappointed. The Giants, it's almost bizarrely inexplicable how they're 0-3, how they lost to the Atlanta Falcons. Okay, you lose to the Broncos, they're 3-0. Fine. You lose by 1 point at Washington, a game you should have won, but you blow that opportunity. Still disappointing. Okay, but to lose 17-14 to this atrocious Atlanta Falcons team, whose offense has been pretty anemic. Out of 32 starting quarterbacks, Matt Ryan ranks 30th for the lowest QBR out of 32 starting quarterbacks. This is a guy who's thrown 4 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, and has one of the worst QBRs in the league, let alone just starting quarterbacks. Their offense has been atrocious. Their defense has been averaging 31 points per game, bottom 3. And the Giants can only muster up 14 points on a day in which you're honoring Eli Manning at MetLife Stadium. It was just embarrassing. It's absolutely embarrassing. And the problem with the Giants is you look at this team and on paper, we should be having exceedingly high expectations, especially given the division that they're in. Because obviously, yes, Saquon Barkley is still kind of getting back into health. He's returning from health slowly, getting a little healthier. But you got Golladay, you got Sterling Shepard, you got Darius Slayton, you got Evan Ingram. There are pieces offensively, and sure, your offensive line isn't that good, but I really like Joe Judge. He was clearly able to coach him up last year. This is a team that had so much momentum heading towards the end of last season. They finished last year 5-3. I thought they had so much built up momentum entering this year, like they were just kind of take off the tarmac and start smooth sailing, but it hasn't been that way. It's been a really turbulent takeoff so far for the Giants to start this year. And Daniel Jones, listen, he's not a world beater. I think he's an above average quarterback. He doesn't look like he's really made many improvements, which to his credit means that he actually entered the NFL playing pretty well, but it also means he hasn't improved a lot. He hasn't made many adjustments. He still has ball security issues, fumbles it all the time. But it's just kind of like the Giants have bamboozled all of us because it's kind of inexplainable why they're 0-3. They're just competitive enough in every single game where they draw off the scent, but then they keep losing in a manner where we're forced to actually dissect them and say, what the hell's going on? So I'd say for me, the New York Football Giants are by far the most disappointing 0-3 team to start the season.